Hi, I'm Andrew Armstrong. Welcome to Back Office. If you recall, in the previous video I've been playing with getting Atari ST output onto a modern day monitor, and I've managed to get the high def. You know, you can use the high res with one of these simple dongles, or you can use a switching one, but my monitor doesn't like the RGB. So what solutions exist? So that if you go on eBay, and I've got my phone here smashing up the place, and I'll just show you this. You can buy these sorts of things, which are sort of RGB, CGA, EGA to VGA adapter things, 20 quid from China, free P&P, and you go, this looks like a solution for me. And yeah, by and large, it kind of is. So this is one of them, and I think they're called, they sort of vary the names, but if you type in HD9800 V5, they'll come up, but they do sort of go under a few other names. I really do forget them. Apparently they're made originally for sort of the arcade cabinet world, so you can sort of go through all the different sort of things, and they have specs, you know. You can see here though, for EGA, CGA, you've got 14.5 kilohertz to 16.5, so you've got the sort of nice coverage of the Atari ST, and then you've got some on-screen menus and some various bump that goes with it, but I'll explain it here, it's quicker. So if you've made my adapter, or you've made just the RGB only version, you don't need to do the high def one, but this won't help you. That's great. What you do is you're going to come in here, so you're effectively going to plug that in like that using a VGA cable probably, or an adapter if you've wired it with that connector on it. And what this does, it will take the VGA signal, process it, I would say the RGB signal rather from the Atari ST, process it, and then output it in a signal that's capable, you know, your monitor should be capable of showing. And if you need to, you can use these buttons to access an on-screen display and then fit the picture to your screen. And by and large, it does work. Now, it did take me quite a lot of time though to faff with it. So I'm going to start with a few gotchas. The first one is make sure you have a beefy enough power supply. So when you apply your power here, you can see it says 5 to 12 volts, but the spec, if I recall, says something like up to 2 amps. So yeah, if you don't have enough juice going in here, you don't get a decent stable picture going out. So that's your first thing. A nice, clean, juicy power supply, not your Atari ST. It doesn't have enough juice to power this. You gotta put this in maybe its own box or something later, you know. Done. So make sure you've got a decent power supply. That's the first one. The second one is the Atari ST has a problem. Well, this has a problem because you can see on the PCB here it has ground. I know it's a strain for you at home. VS, vertical sync, horizontal sync, yeah? S, whatever that is, RGB, right? So the problem is when I've looked at the board, I'm really not sure the vertical sync is hooked up to anything. So there's something going on wrong with the synchronization. So when you actually plug this in, you'll notice the picture will flicker, and that's going to irritate you. And I've been through all the forums and tried to get some sort of closure on this, and the only thing I could come up with, and it does work in a sort of roundabout way, is I put this wee little jumper here. And that's basically means you're combining the horizontal sync and the vertical sync pulses from the Atari onto this board, and then it's doing some sort of decoding magic and kind of getting that to be a reasonably stable picture. So I'll just show you that again. So on the back, how you can do this in a couple of different ways. So I've just jumpered directly on the pins. You can see I've got a jumper between these pins. So if you come in from the edge, 1, 2, 3, and 4, pins 3 and 4 from that edge. And if you look on this side, you can actually just probably plop a jumper straight in between the appropriate pins here. This actually does come with a wire harness, and you go, great, this has got the wire harness, but again, when you look at the pins, when you try to plug this in, it doesn't have the pin for the horizontal sync. It only has the vertical sync. So as I said, I'm pretty sure it's not using one of them, and it's probably not using the horizontal sync if this is the actual cable set that comes with it. So you can't really use this cable as it stands with your Atari ST unless of course you combine the syncs on this end. So you could combine the syncs on this end, but then you wouldn't be able to use this in the switching configuration, because if you combine the syncs, this will screw it up when you've got your mono mode. So that's the kind of biggest gotcha here. So if you're using one of these boards, jumper it on the board, and then this board is only ever good for the low to medium resolutions, and that's fine because you can always use an external VGA switcher. So if you've got a VGA switcher box, you can plug your Atari ST into that and switch between this and switch directly to the monitor, and then when you switch it directly to the monitor mode, you're just going to flip this switch here, and then that will put you in the high resolution mode and sort of bypass this altogether. When you want to go back to playing games, flick that over, switch back to this unit, and away you go. I mean, a lot of monitors have two VGA ports, or at least they used to. They're probably HDMI ports now, or DVI, but have a look. You know, you'll find old monitors for that. So all that is left to sort of do is probably show you how this works, and it's quite simple really. Just plug this in, plug in your monitor connector. And I might have mentioned this earlier or in a previous video, how I've actually damaged my monitor. Not sure how. I think it might be just from lumping it around the garage, or the back office as it is more officially known, the garage to the back office. And I think I bashed the screen because I've got a vertical line down it now. I'm not pleased about that. So once you've got that hooked up, I'm just going to hook this up to the Atari end. So you can see we can just plug it in right now and let it boot up. Once it boots up into, say, low res mode, you can switch to medium res and back again. That's all fine. What you will notice though, that the screen is quite jittery. It does jump from time to time, and then that's a problem to do with that H-Sync V-Sync issue. And not only that, there's some strange artifacting around the mouse. So if you move the mouse around, or parts of the screen as they're moving, you'll see a certain amount of pixelization around there. So there's something going on. I mean, it's pretty strange. I don't know how the frame buffer in these devices are working, but it's pretty crude. So you can see that sort of weird artifacts and the strange jumping. And sometimes that jumping does seem to go away. I haven't yet managed to find a sort of a better power supply that I had sort of, I don't have anything lying around, but it may well be down to the power supply. Or it could be down to the power supply in the Atari ST, so I'm not really sure on the signal coming out of the ST how clean that is. It looks fine when you run it on a SCART TV, but just maybe it's not quite right for this gadget. You can boot it straight into a game and you can see that looks fine. Again though, it's doing the weird jumping, and say sometimes it's just rock solid and it just doesn't do it at all, it's just perfect, and other times it's just jumping all over the place. I have no idea what's causing it. I can switch the switch then just to sort of boot up into high res. That works as normal. Again, you get this strange banding on the high res thing, but that seems to be typical with these LCD monitors. I think it could well be down to some adjustment. Maybe some trim pots in the RGB of the actual adapter could help just sort of tune those out a bit. But really, I'm kind of at the point now where I probably just don't care to play with it so much. Just to be frank, I've got on order a couple of RGB to HDMI outputs, and I think once I get those, if they work fine, I'm just going to use those. If not, I bought a SCART lead recently for Atari ST that just pumps the sound and video straight to a TV. I'm just going to use that. I've no intention of using an Atari ST as a desktop replacement, especially considering I could emulate the whole lot on a Raspberry Pi or a Pi Zero, one of these little gadgets like this, which are basically, have more power than the whole bloody Atari ST, so you can emulate the whole thing. You could gut the machine and just mount one of those in it if you really wanted to. So there's only so far I'm prepared to sort of take with these old machines, and I did have an an Amiga, which I put into a tower. I put all the accelerators and memory upgrades and Ethernet and blitters and blotters and this and that and CD drive and DV drive and all of this stuff, and at the end of it all, still pretty unusable by modern standards. It's still a pretty crap machine, so it's not worth it. Just for nostalgic reasons, get your machine, get your SCART lead, make UK tellies all of SCART, plug it in, enjoy it for what it is. You're not gonna really get that sense of enjoyment once you start fannying around with all these things and trying to plug it into modern day monitors and stuff. Just don't bother. I'll be doing a review though on the HDMI stuff soon as they arrive. We'll go through that, see how the picture fares on those, and if they work, they're a better value, frankly. This thing cost about £20. You can see that on the eBay listing. The RGB SCART to HDMI output adapter with all the bells and whistles on is £24. So frankly, I wouldn't play around with this piece of crap. And it really is a piece of crap. Remember the jumper, guys. Remember the jumper. Please leave any comments down below if you've had any success with your HD9800 V5.0, if you've really bothered persevering, if you've created sync hardware to go in this to actually correct the synchronization pulses. I'm sure you can just do it with a couple of AND gates, but why bother? Really, why bother? Please feel free to like and subscribe to this video. And actually, if you're into Atari ST, please take a look at my playlist. I'm starting to add things to an Atari ST specific playlist, in addition to sort of my Raspberry Pi and Teardown videos and those things. Have a look among all those things, see what you like. And as ever, guys, really, thank you for watching.